Well, hello and welcome once again, J76NY here, and we are continuing on with our douchebag playthrough on Torpor Games Suzerain. We have managed to piss off our wife, most of our staff, our vice president, who we insulted in his own house, and probably a large chunk of the minority population of Bluedish people of Sordland. So we're doing pretty good here. Now, we do have a few things we have to attend to. We have trade talks, which are actually kind of an important decision to make. We've got the trade talks with Wheland, and then trade talks with Agnolia here. I would like to kind of partner with Agnolia in terms of trade. I know that will have repercussions later on due to my first playthrough. I do know these guys are not the best friends, and push comes to shove, and we're expected to take sides, so that could be a complication. Not really sure how Agnolia is going to react to us because of the course I've taken Sordland, so we're going to get right into the Agnolian trade talks. Sordland 1's flight from Holsword to Stallport took 3 hours, but went very smoothly. We were about to touch down. David left his seat and came over while Simon was enjoying his newspaper. Looks like we were about to land, Mr. President. I looked outside. I could see Helgeland, the island between Vogsland and Agnolia. So many conflicts over a small piece of land. The island can barely sustain itself without outside help. I know, I was just thinking the same thing. If I was in the shoes of the Agnolian Prime Minister, I would do anything to protect the motherland, or I don't blame them. It's a very strategic position. I'm going to go with this course, but as I get older, I start to question more things. I suspect it will be one of the topics that Mr. Van Horten will bring up as a bargaining chip. We must be careful. Helgeland must be under the control of Agnolia, but the international community is yet to recognize it, for a good reason, too. Nobody wants to make an enemy of Vogsland, especially because of the support of United Cantana and CSP. CSP is kind of, I don't know, kind of like the EU or the Warsaw Pact or any of those other treaty organizations. NATO. Not quite on the level of the United Nations, but it's a regional treaty organization. I don't care who we are against. We will cross that bridge when we come to it, and me included. I wouldn't want to do anything to injure our relationship with Vogsland. Go with that one, actually. I agree, we should try our best to stay in the middle ground. Simon folded his newspaper, got up from his seat, and sat right next to us. Aside from the point of Helgeland, we need to be careful with the additional requests. According to the deal that was negotiated so far, they want to sell us their steel for a higher price, and they're requesting easier access to our agricultural market. In return, they are promising cash flow and investments, especially in the Agnoland region. Not hard to guess why. Precisely. Agnolian immigrants in our oh my lord, I can't say that. Make up a good chunk of the region's economy right now. I guess that's one of the downsides of having a tooth pulled a couple days ago, is my tongue gets jammed up and certain pronunciations just sort of don't work. During the initial negotiations, they have brought up the topic of immigration many times. Our job will be harder because of the new tightened immigration laws. Let's see if we can shake hands on it. The pilot made an announcement that the descent had started. David and Simon went back to their seats. I took another look out the window. I could see Stallport, the capital city of Agnolia. Large dockyards of the city and the canals appeared closer as our descent continued. Stallport was certainly a fitting name due to stall, meaning canal. A couple of minutes later, we finally touched down. Plane parked. took a final look out the window. The welcoming ceremony from Agnolia was waiting along the red carpet outside. After the guard made their way out, I exited the plane. Proceed without a gesture. Prime Minister Van Horten was nowhere in sight. Instead, I was greeted by the Foreign Minister. Uh-oh. After handshakes and a couple of photos, I moved to the car where Serge was waiting to make our way to the office of the Prime Minister. Good day, sir. I hope the flight was comfortable. Oh. See, this is one guy, my wife and kids too, that I kind of have a problem being a dick to, because Serge is just one of the nicest characters in the game. But Anton being Anton. I got in the car and we made our way through the foreign streets. Our convoy was protected by Sordish and Agnolian guards in their vehicles. We began driving by the highway beside the port, and I saw dozens of dockyards and ships anchored. Some of the ships and machinery looked old. The city itself looked very gray and grim. Buildings had a touch of Rumberg's famous monarchian architecture, with a mixture of Sordish signature domes on the older ones. We were now on the main road to the office of the Prime Minister. Looks like they're not too happy to see you, sir. Serge pointed at the crowd that gathered on both sides of the street. It was a protest. They were shouting and yelling at our convoy. Some of them held signs written in Sordish. Go home, Rayne. We don't want autocrats in Agnolia. You know, I never knew Agnolians were so ungrateful. Not everybody sees a great leader like you every day. Let's see. So ungrateful. Bricks. I know what it is. They were always scared of Sordland's potential. Now they are afraid that a lion leads Sordland. They are afraid of you. Serge is like a dog that you can beat and beat and beat, and he still waves his tail. We have arrived, sir. The car continued through the gates while the security vehicles went the other way. We finally came to a stop in front of the door. Serge left the car and opened the car door. I exited and began walking to the door where dozens of press and the Prime Minister were waiting for me. I saw the Prime Minister much more clearly as I neared the door. He was shorter than I thought. Mr. President, welcome to Agnolia and to the beautiful city of Stallport. Prime Minister. He reached out for a handshake. The press surrounding us had been waiting for this moment. Overpower his handshake. Going for a hug. Gonna overpower him. Break his hand. I overpowered his handshake and he got caught by surprise as the press took a picture of me having the upper hand. Smiled awkwardly. He gestured to the entrance of the 200-year-old Parliament building. We entered and the press followed us inside. I'd like to present you with a gift as a sign of friendship between our two countries. An assistant showed up immediately with a large glass box in her hand. It contained a single parchment inside. This here is one of the first treaties written in between Sordland and Agnolia. May it mark the renewal of our friendship today as well. I hope so. Our photos were taken again. I gestured at one of my retainers who was holding our gift to the PM. Well, let's see what's the crappiest one we could give him. One of the original copies of the first Constitution of Sordland. Sordish-bred puppy, despite Martin's known fear of dogs. Oh boy. Here we go. Not going to give him a nice sword. Give him a dog that he's afraid of. Martin stepped backwards when the puppy howled. He very uncomfortably held the dog in his hands and tried to smile at the reporters before putting the dog down on the floor. Cameras flashed once again. Let's go to my office. Follow me now. I followed him and we entered the office of the Prime Minister. It was a room of wooden minimalist decoration. It was far more modest than I expected. We sat down. I leaned back and made myself comfortable. Or he leaned back and made himself. Wow. Yeesh, thankful that thankfully done with the ceremony. I was about to say the same thing. One of the tougher parts of our job, he got up from his chair and moved over to the bar. For many varieties of liquor. Would you like a drink, Mr. Rayne? Agnolia and vodka. I hate vodka, so we're going to go with this Burloy Maroon 30-year-old. Nah, you're keeping it sortish. A very good whiskey for you, for sure. He poured the drinks and gave mine to me before sitting down again. What's with the protests? Can't you control them? Lashing out at me before we even started discussing the trade deal. Please, look at your own country first, before indulging yourself with Agnolian matters, Mr. Rayne. Well, they were insulting me. First of all, I would like to say that I've been watching your recent changes to the immigration policy. You have worries about the new and tighter immigration law. Immigrants are very important for beneficial economic development, and we believe that very much in Agnolia. We would definitely prefer Sordland to be welcoming to Agnolian citizens, and vice versa. Decision's already been made. Before I start caring about Agnolian citizens, I must care about my own people. Don't you deal with the problems in your own country first. But with this one. Valid point, but you're not giving me much incentive to work with. Took a sip of his vodka. I know that you have declared a state of emergency, so early into your presidency too, so tell me, how's that going? Going well, we are eliminating the threat one by one, internal and external. That's none of your business. So we'll go with this one. Kind of subtly threaten him. Worrying that a state of emergency was declared right next to our borders. Too bad. The reason I am asking this question is because I need to know if Sordland is a reliable trading partner. So tell me, Mr. Rayne, is Sordland a reliable trading partner to Agnolia? Not if you keep acting like you have the upper hand. As long as Agnolia is a reliable trading partner, seems like a good choice. I can assure you we are. Van Horton leaned back further in contemplation. Are you going to talk all day about past deeds, or are we going to sign this deal? Afraid with all your actions so far, I'm not convinced that Sordland is the right partner for Agnolia. Sordland is simply too volatile. Elected politicians are getting killed in your country left and right, not to mention the subsequent protests in between, well, the left and right. We were willing at first, however, the situation has changed. We do not have confidence in your state anymore. I'm sorry that you've come all this way for this. Well, fuck you too. Bring me here to ridicule me? Of course not. Well then, he stood up from his chair. We must continue the official program. As you know, we will pay a visit to our founder's grave for another ceremony. Afterward, we will move on to the state dinner. Fuck you. His eyes widen in surprise. But this is customary. Every Sordish president before you has done this. This won't sit well with us. I must insist we follow the protocol. Or what? This is outrageous. You are not giving confidence to the people of Agnolia right now. You already shot down my trade deal. Why stick around for your silly little ceremonies? But it's your decision, after all. Very well, I will let them know that you are heading out. See you later, Mr. President. We will be in touch. I got up from my chair. Yeah, you're welcome to come visit Sordland. Surely we can arrange something. Serge was waiting for me. I got in the car and we started driving back to the airport. I briefed Simon and David. Way back was mostly silent. I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when we touched down in Holsword. Well, no trade deal with Agnolia. We have here. Radical journalist arrested. Swedish authorities detained the journalist John Dandern of one of the country's opposition newspapers, The Radical, on Monday for suspected links to the militant organization Red Youth. Earlier today, the police claimed they discovered Dandern to have close ties with the banned Red Youth organization. Oh boy. For arresting journalists from The Radical. Let's see what The Radical has to say about that. Darkness descends. Our respected correspondent and columnist journalist John Dandern was arrested among several others yesterday after trying to report on the police arrest of members of the socialist unions. He was immediately arrested on scene without giving a reason. Whine, whine, whine. We will not be silenced. The morning has come. Hegel. Van Horten is playing with fire. Yesterday morning, Chancellor of Volksland, Hegel, delivered a press conference in Haarlem about the escalating tensions in Helgeland. During the press release, he said Agnolia's unlawful occupation of the island will not stop us from doing whatever it takes to protect our people living in Helgeland. He heavily criticized and condemned Prime Minister Van Horten, saying, "We are dealing with an illegal occupation force which doesn't refrain from entering our territorial waters without asking permission." Ugh. Van Horten is playing with fire. Well, if push comes to shove, which it is going to, I guess we'll side with Volksland. Hell with that Van Horten clown. Rioters arrested in Lenkerg. And we are on to our trade talks with Wheland. So let's get into it. Sordland 1's flight from Holsord to Rocklauts took approximately 5 hours despite heavy turbulence. I managed a little sleep. Along with Simon and David, we landed at the international airport of the capital city of Wheland. Our aim here was to finalize the trade deal drafted in between Sordland and Wheland. Let's see how we can flush this one down the toilet. Shortly after our plane landed, the door opened and the sun blinded me for a moment. I stepped outside. I saw the soldiers lined up on either side of a red carpet. Must have been at least 100 soldiers. Marching bands started playing, and the soldiers immediately saluted me. I'll salute the soldiers. At the bottom of the stairs, Wicktor Smolak was waiting for me next to a military jeep with a few soldiers by his side. There were a few reporters on the side waiting with their cameras. He was a tall man, almost as tall as me. He was wearing large sunglasses, and his attire was a regular suit, contrasting the military attire of everyone else in the field. I'm getting a distinct Pablo Escobar vibe about this guy. Or what is it, El Chapo, the more recent one? Maybe we could be friends with him. He immediately motioned for an embrace. Maybe we could be friends. We hugged and many cameras went off at the same time. Turned around for a couple of additional poses. Pull him aside for a couple of more poses yourself. There we go. Instagram comes early to Sordland. Now that the pleasantries are done, let's go. We will take the jeep for a tour. With another tune from the marching band, we boarded the military jeep. He sat in the driver's seat and I sat next to him. As we started speeding up, the soldiers saluted again. He saluted back. Salute too. He hugged me after all. Beginning of a beautiful friendship. My security detail and Victor's security detail started following us immediately along with a team of reporters. We will first go to the city center to see the opening of a statue. Rather not waste time and get straight to business. Mr. President, I must insist. Also, I'm in the driver's seat. Good point. We kept making small talk about the flight and the weather until we started making our way into the city center. On almost every corner, there were reporters taking photos of us. Oddly enough, every single street that we took seemed completely empty. How long is this going to take? Patience is a virtue. We will be done soon, and then we can discuss our trade deal. There we are. We arrived at the city center. In the middle of a large plaza, there was a covered statue. Lots of people had gathered behind fences, and they were waving both Sordland and Wheland flags. Victor waved back at him. My people have been very supportive of this visit, Mr. President. I'm sure you're delighted to see. A man came closer to the fence and started yelling at Victor. With my limited knowledge of Wezek language, I understood the words Victor and murderer. Almost instantaneously, two soldiers showed up from behind the man and he was taken away. Thankfully, the sun is up. Today will be a good day for the reveal. See that you know how to handle dissonance. Glad you approve. We were of the same mind. See, I knew we would get along just fine. He moved in for another hug. I just threw that in there because guys just make a cute. Not gonna go there. I'm on the outs with my wife and all, so who's to say it? Not possible. We took our place in front of the statue. With a drum roll, the statue of Wicktor Smolak was uncovered. The statue was done pretty well, except that he was made more masculine. He was wearing a cloak and holding a sword in his hands. Excellent statue, very lifelike. What do you think? Yes, it's very good, very lifelike. Glad you appreciate the art behind it. Join me for a walk. I followed him through the streets. At every corner, more and more photos were taken. We stopped in front of a pastry vendor on the street. Give me 2 strudels. Man behind the stand smiled and gave us 2 strudels. Wait for him to pay it for it. This is our first date, after all. He simply took the strudels and didn't pay anything. Whatever. Afterwards, we walked a short distance to the palace. Passing the gates of the palace, we made our way into the main building made from ivory-colored stones. The old guard towers flanked the magnificent main building from both sides. The inside of the palace was very spacious, with a very large chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Grand staircases made from the same ivory stone had red carpets on them. On both sides of the upper level, guards stood with the traditional outfits of the old Wezek kingdoms. We finally reached the office of the president of Wheland. The door closed behind us. The interior boasted gold ornaments on the walls, ivory colors, and various jewels attached to different artifact of old. As it was customary in Wheland, we sat down on the carpet. Now we can talk about our trade deal. But before that, clapped his hands twice. Bring the chiza. Few assistants immediately entered the room carrying a large ornamental kiza, well-known smoking instrument originating from Wheland. Oh boy, he's gonna get me doped up. Hell, buddy, you don't really have to do all that. They immediately lit it up and the room was filled with the smell of tobacco. Now what? Inhaled the smoke and handed me the chiza. Partake. Probably the highest quality tobacco I have ever smoked. Took another puff, filling the room with more smoke. So, President. That's too long. Can I call you Anton? I prefer my official title. You cockroach. Very well, Mr. President. I know you have put an embargo on them, and I congratulate you for standing up to Rumberg. But let me ask you a question. What do you really think about Rumberg? They can go to hell. Exactly. To hell with Rumberg. I like you already, Mr. President. I assure you their time will come. Are you planning something? No. Not yet. For now, I have something else in mind. He clapped his hands again. Two assistants came into the room with a map of the border regions between Wheland and Sordland, pointing it at the border. Look. Bloods and their so-called BFF are causing problems for me in this region. I know that they are also a problem for you as well. I will not allow these traitors to exist in my border, so I will hit them with all the might of Wheland. Terrorists need to be destroyed. Call it Operation Bear Trap. Like the sound of it. He grinned and lay back on the large pillow behind him. I'm trying so hard not to gay this up right now. I really am. But there's a script. We have to follow it, right? So here we go. I will give you the best trade deal in the region. You will give me your assistance crushing the terrorists on both of our borders. 2 birds, 1 stone. Tell me more. Sure. My spies have infiltrated BFF cells and they found caches of KA-74s. We trace them back to Rumberg. This alone justifies my retaliation to protect my country. Sure. Worst of all, we found that similar shipments are going to Sordland. Yes, Mr. President, you see, this is not just Wheland's problem. Let's take a step back and talk about what you will get in return. I propose you a no-tariff agreement, no investment projects, and oil. Not bad. In return, you will assist me in destroying the terrorists in my country. What kind of support do you need from me? We can, but these vermin are good at hiding. What I want from you in return for all the money and the resources is a joint operation in between our armies and BFF. Took a moment to think about it. Negotiate Sordland's contribution in this operation. You're a tough one, Mr. President. Normally I wouldn't offer anything else, but I like you. Here's my final offer. When the operation starts, with you or without you, there will be stragglers trying to cross into Sordland. We just want you to support the operation even if you do not join. Stop the terrorists from fleeing into your country and you will have your deal. Simple, isn't it? What do you think? Deal. Knew I could trust you, Mr. President. Tonight we will drink. Clapped his hands again. Drinks, dancers, music. A group of dancers and performers entered the smoke-filled room. As they performed their songs, we clinked our glasses to our newly found partnership while sipping the sweetest Wezek liquor. Next day, I returned to Sordland with a hangover. Oh boy, here we go. All right. So trade deal with Wheland in El Chapo. All about. Arrest report from Narble. 1,000 people were arrested in Narble in relation to the operation against national security threat. According to the report, the situation in Narble and the surrounding regions is under the control of the police. Surveillance report. The Sordish Intelligence Directorate reported that the city of Volgan is housing a large number of people who may pose a threat to Sordish national security. The Directorate has issued the permission to wiretap any landlines in the city. Got a lesbian spy. Interrogation's underway. Very interesting. Alright, well, let's see what we got here. Sordland ratified a new trade agreement with Wheland. Sordland ratified a new trade agreement and an investment protection agreement with Wheland. Right? This is a significant development that shows a significant normalization of Sordland-Wessex relations after decades of troubles. At the most basic level, the agreement will support jobs and growth between the two nations and ensure that Sordland will be buying Wessex oil for a cheaper price. The agreement will gradually reduce most tariffs and regulatory barriers, creating new opportunities for Swedish entrepreneurs to do business and invest in Wheland. The negotiations also included a cooperation pact against the terrorist organization Swedish Freedom Front. Right. Still no change in our economy. Still at 3. Railroad seems to have stalled. We have here. Extend the emergency declared. Emergency decree helps stabilize the country to a certain degree, but the opposition is growing. The continuous use of special powers has been opposed by Minister Morgana, and, Chief Justice Hawker has argued that the security situation hasn't fully resolved and is demanding an extension to fully stabilize the country. We extend or end the emergency. We're extending the emergency. Right. Assembly session on the Emergency Act and National Assembly of Sordland. Full sword. Alright, let's do it. Session of the Grand National Assembly was in order because of the continued discussion about the emergency. The opposition wanted to declare it null and void. I was seated in one of the seats reserved for the Council of Ministers. It was positioned slightly higher than the rest of the seats and had an angle that made for a clear view of the whole place. I glanced down at the USP seats and casually watched the people inside as Gloria announced the next speaker before the vote to revoke the decree. Mr. Frens Ricter from the People's Freedom and Justice Party has the floor, says Gloria Tory. Ladies and gentlemen, a devastating picture has often been painted of the state of affairs prevailing in Sordland today. As always, in such cases, there is no lack of exaggeration. Considering the extreme measures being taken that completely set aside our freedoms, no one can fairly demand or expect us to accept this extension of the Emergency Act. The elections of December have resulted in a majority for the USP and thus given Mr. Rayne the opportunity to govern strictly as laid down in the intention of the Constitution. But where this opportunity is given, it is coupled with obligations, respecting the laws and listening to criticism if necessary. Not only the Assembly's opinion was not asked, the reason for the emergency nor its extension were not justified. The President clearly has ideological intentions. Could say that again. This decree was an attempt to destroy the socialist movement. This decree was a declaration of war against the brutish people. The President does not even shy away from using divisive words. Because I'm a douchebag. What do you expect? He has political intentions which will have grave consequences for our country. Ladies and gentlemen of the United Sordland Party, you have claimed to have reformed the party and promised to bring the change people have been asking for. Yet while the workers, the peasants, the white-collar employees, the civil servants, or the businessmen of Sordland have their own troubles, demands from us, you go about fighting wars with enemies that don't exist. Everybody expected of you to rewrite the outdated constitution of Tarkin Sol. Now we have an emergency on our hands, which is fabricated to create a justification for the lack of reforms of the government and their apparent hunger for authority. Now we have dirt on you, Mr. Richter, so you better watch your words. Loud applause came from the opposition. Stand up and yell at him. I stood up. I shouted at him in protest. Watch what you were saying. Franz looked at me and then at Gloria. Mr. President, please continue, Mr. Richter. Thank you, Mrs. Speaker. I have to say, I deplore the reaction of the President. He cleared his throat. I ask for the honorable colleagues to support the PFJP in revoking this emergency here and now. I am talking to the members of the United Sordland Party as well. Do not act partisan in matters with such critical importance. We know that this emergency is a dangerous exaggeration and it can have very grim consequences on our democratic institutions. I wish to trust in your judgment and ask for your help in reaching an absolute majority against this decree. One man from the USP seat yelled, "In your dreams," made the USP burst into laughter. When in fact the Assembly fails to deliver its duties for the good of the Sordish people, I shall be personally making a case to the Supreme Court about the legality of this emergency. Well, good luck with that. Oh, good luck with that. That's all I got to say about that. Is it was his idea in the first place. Dweeb. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know this emergency is unlawful. It breaches on the right for a fair trial by... it breaches on the right for a fair trial by giving the state the right to detain anyone without trial. This is a breach on democracy as well as the freedoms of men defined in Section 100 of the Constitution. It also denies people's rights to assemble and protest. This is a clear breach of freedom of expression, and freedom of speech. According to the Constitution, these rights cannot be suspended under any circumstance than being under invasion. God, this guy's got a lot to say. Do any of you see any Rumburgian tanks in Sordland? Are we under bombardment? There's nobody attacking but the state. They are persecuting thousands of innocents under national security threat. Who will stop the president from prosecuting all who oppose him tomorrow? The state is acting illegally. I hereby invite the Supreme Court to duty and ask for them to subject this decree to a proper judicial review and revoke it before it's too late. Must adhere to the basic principles of a constitutional state, to the equality of rights, and the concept of social legislation anchored therein. I ask everyone to support in the upcoming vote. Thank you. Well, that was a lot. Mr. Ricter walked back to his seat among applause from his party. Next, the Assembly will vote on PFJP's demand to revoke the validity of the emergency. According to the Constitution, the Assembly requires at least 2/3 majority to revoke an emergency declared by the President. People started to get up from their seats to take the envelopes and cast their votes. Go cast a vote. I didn't know I could vote in the Assembly. That seems kind of strange. Whatever. I grabbed the envelope and prepared my vote. Let's see. Oh no. Some time has passed when the votes were counted. Suddenly, Gloria's gavel echoed in the hall, which eliminated the carefree attitude that lurked after the voting. You have 131 A's and 119 nays. A's do not exceed the 2/3 threshold, so the nays have it. PFJP members started making noise. I bet if I'd voted A for the hell of it, I would have put him over the top and canceled my own state of emergency. A lot of people, including Frens Ricter, demanded to speak. Frens looked directly at me. No decree can give you the power to destroy ideas which are eternal and indestructible. I hail those who are persecuted and in despair. We hail the strong Sordish opposition. Their steadfastness and loyalty are worthy of acclaim. Courage of their convictions, their unbroken faith, are the guarantees of a brighter future. He turned around and went back to his seat. Ask to speak. You can't stand against me. Unlimited power! I condemn Mr. Richter's empathy and support for the persecuted. With this behind us, we must not deviate from the real enemy. We will handle all problems. Wink. Monson Leckie interrupted me. Isn't he a terrorist? Talk about difficult times, enemies, and problems, yet all these products are products of the Sordish state. The Blutish people are refraining themselves from turning against those who tortured and humiliated them for decades. We only ask to be properly represented in the assembly. Say the decree has nothing to do with political agenda, but all we have are fingers being pointed out again. Workers' Party of Blutia is a completely legal and democratic party, not since I made you guys terrorists, being supported by millions of Blutish people. I condemn this state for silencing another democratic party again. It seems Sordland has made its choice again. Any attempt to turn back the wheels of time will be in vain. We, the Blutish people, and the democratic socialists, are aware that one cannot eliminate the realities of power politics by simple act of legal protest. We now see the reality of your present rule. Sounds revolutionary. Let's have him arrested. If I could do that. Find out. But the people's sense of justice also wields political power, Mr. President, and we will never stop appealing to this sense of justice. Order, Mr. Leckie. Try to refrain from speaking out of turn. Implying violence against the state? Go ahead, create any reason to prosecute me too. I'm trying. I'm trying, really, I am. Order, this issue has been settled. We'll be moving on to the next topic. Gloria did her best to bring order back to the assembly and proceed with the schedule. After the session, I finally felt at ease when I left the chaos of the assembly behind. It was a tough session, but the opposition failed to revoke the emergency decree in the end, which worked perfectly for us. However, Frens was going to disrupt the decree by going to court. If Orso's promise could be trusted, that would not create an issue for us, but I still couldn't keep myself from worrying. Hey, there's that. Oh, we get to continue. Proceed to the next turn. Border report. Defense Minister Joseph Lancia reports that the Wheland border has been closed and the Division of the Third Army are ready for operations. Very good. Anything else? Emergency debate in the Assembly. Swedish lawmakers debated the ending of the country's state of emergency in a 6-hour session. Most of which was taken up by Frens Ricter. This is babbling. Leader of the PFJP, Frens Ricter, proposed the revocation of the emergency decree, but the proposal was rejected by 2/3 majority vote in the Grand National Assembly. Okay. Supreme Court to decide the legality of the emergency. Frens Ricter filed a complaint. You can read that if you want. I'll leave it there for a second, or you can pause. Wait, hang on. Might be important. It is uncertain if the Supreme Court will take the case or the decision it would take if it were to accept it. Supreme Court Justice Isabel Edmonds, however, said that the court has to conduct a proper judicial review, which was due that time, but it was earlier ignored. Or so Hawker hasn't said anything radical. Ricter, no decree can give you the power to destroy ideas. Blah, blah, blah. Walker warns Vogslandian Navy over Helgeland dispute. We're going to end up siding with Vogsland here. Vogsland is Democratic Republic. We are not anymore. So, Agnolia and Vogsland over here are going to start duking it out over this little island here. We're going to end up siding with them, if that's possible. Because fuck him. And then we're about to get into some type of operation here called Bear Trap. Operation Bear Trap with Pablo Escobar. But that's going to be for a future episode. When we come back for episode number 17, we're going to hit that continue button and proceed to the next turn. Anyway, if you like the episode, hit the like button. If you have any thoughts on the game, kind of curious what you guys think, leave those in the comment section down below. If you want to follow along, see if Rayne down there can make this a full-blown state of dictatorship and make it through the rest of the playthrough without getting a bullet, hit the subscribe and you can come along with us, and we'll see you for the next episode. Hey, 76NY saying thank you very much for watching and have yourself a very good day.